Okay, well, we're at the top of the hour, so I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to everybody. It's nice to see you all, even if it's not in person. It's nice to see you all on Zoom. And I know it's been a little bit since our last town hall, so there's lots to catch up on. And so we're going to jump right into the agenda. I think Patrina is actually going to run the slides for us today. We merged everyone's presentations together. So if we can call up the slides, that would be great. And I'll just go over the agenda very briefly here. Thank you, Patrina. And so we're going to talk a little bit about remote work. This is on everybody's mind. We're getting lots of questions about the return to campus for those that are working remotely and the opportunities to work remotely for the longer term. We're going to talk about, we're going to have a total rewards update. And so Michelle Hill, Michelle Barrett, Dan Salamone, and Sonia Garlington are on the agenda for both a benefits update and a career path modernization project update. We have some exciting things going on in learning and development. And so Stephanie Van Bacco is going to talk about that, as well as Michelle Lewis. And then we're going to have introductions of new employees. We have a lot of new folks in HR. Talk a little bit about recognition and do some service anniversaries. We're going to announce the 2021 HR Achievement Award. And then just, I will give a brief update on the CHRO search as I know it at this time. I'm sure everyone is wondering where we are with that. And then we'll close for the day. So we're going to go ahead and jump right into me just giving a brief update on remote work and return to campus. So if we can go to the next slide, what we've put here is just an overview of what the process will be. And I want to start by saying that what we've determined is that we have about 4,000 employees that are working remotely in one way, shape, or form across the university. And can everyone see the slide okay? Is it big enough? Okay. So in terms of the process for kind of making decisions and returning to campus, for those that will be returning to campus, one of the things that has to happen, if you look on the left-hand side of this slide, that first box is establish reentry criteria. And this is really about what do the conditions have to be for us to bring people back to campus who were sent home to work remotely at the beginning of the pandemic. And so there is a work group that is working with the CURT team that's made up of a number of individuals across the organization. And it will take guidance from certainly the CDC, but more our local authorities. It will consider our vaccination rates in our community and our readiness in terms of the things that, some of these other things that we're going to talk about in a minute here, to bring people back on site. And so that's kind of the first step, and there's a work group that's working on that. We have a second work group that myself and Holly Crawford are chairing that will look at the overall return to work, but specifically in more detail, what is our opportunity for longer term remote work, and how will we help leaders make decisions in their departments about the longer term remote work opportunities. And so that second box is really about assessing remote work assignments and understanding the overall workforce planning for the various areas. And that is really things like understanding what are the roles and responsibilities of the individuals that are either working remotely now or we're considering remote work in the future, and how do we assess what really is right for long-term remote work. So we may have some individuals that went to work remotely that we never thought it would work out, and it's actually been better in some ways than we even anticipated. There may be others that are working remotely, but it's not ideal. and we need to understand why and what we might need to do. Does that mean they have to come back 100%? Does it mean that we have to look at perhaps rotating people in and out, depending on the various schedules and the space constraints? So lots to consider when we're looking at remote work. And we've developed a number of tools for leaders to do that planning for their areas. And this work group that we have is looking at the tools right now and making sure that they meet the needs of leaders as they start to do these assessments in more detail. From there, we really need to look at the physical workspace, modifications to meet established criteria for social distancing and other needs. And we know that those guidelines locally and nationally are changing pretty rapidly as people get vaccinated. We need to prepare guidelines for shared spaces, meal breaks and break spaces. All of that has to be determined. Many areas have already gone through this because they've brought some people back to the work environment already. And then employee health guidelines certainly need to be established for cleaning and shared spaces and those types of things. And then where we haven't had visitors and vendors really interacting, we have to understand that as well. And then certainly we have to have the proper signage and information for staff to know what's required. All of this takes communication, training, and we have to have a really good, solid implementation plan. And so this work group is really making sure that we have all of these things in place so that by hopefully somewhere around the end of May, we will be able to give employees an update on where we are and what they can anticipate in terms of a better timeline for what we're looking at in terms of doing the assessment and when folks may come back to campus. So I know it is not a concrete timeline, but it is a really solid work plan for getting to our timeline. And like I said, I think by the end of May, we'll have a really good, we'll be in a good position to really communicate more clearly about timelines and how we're making decisions and what that will look like for staff. I know people are looking to plan for the summer with childcare and camps and other things. And so we want to make sure that we give you all of the right information. And I think the key thing as leaders are looking at the opportunities for longer term remote work, one of the things that's really important and that the work group has been talking about is to make sure that we're involving our staff in these conversations. Nobody knows your work like you do. And so it's really important that as we're doing these assessments that leaders are talking with the staff who are currently working remotely or who may have an opportunity to work remotely, and that we're planning together. And so I'm going to stop there and just take any questions that you may have. I think we can spend a couple minutes on questions before we move into the next agenda item. And if you have questions, maybe you could put them in the chat because there's so many of us. I just want to make sure we share the information across all of us. Anything? You guys are quiet on a Thursday afternoon. All right, well, I'll tell you what, we'll move on to our next agenda item. And if you have, oh, look at this, Jim Dauberton. I can always count on Jim. A few people have asked about keeping remote. So I think, Jim, or working remote from another state. Okay, so these are actually two different things. So the longer term remote work will be part of this assessment process, this return to campus process. And so really making that assessment will be part of that work. The working remotely from another state is really tricky. And part of the reason that is kind of a difficult and probably a longer term assessment process is that our friends in payroll, as well as Kathy Miner, who does a lot of our policy work and leave work, would tell you that the laws in other states are very different than they are in New York State. And there's all kinds of nuances, there's tax implications, there's all kinds of things that have to be considered. And we are not currently set up to really be an employer in other states. We have, I think, 8 states that we have a good framework because we have programs that we run where we have people working in these states, and we've had to stay close to those employment laws. But that leaves a whole lot of other states that we're just not set up in. So right now, our Office of Counsel is actually putting together a white paper that kind of outlines all of the key concerns and items that we need to understand before we can really make decisions about allowing remote work from other states. And I think, you know, another part of this, and this is something someone brought up in another meeting, is, you know, we need to also consider our community and supporting workers in our community and providing employment. And so we really need to balance how all of that works. And we have to balance the cost of really managing multiple out-of-state workers. It's an infrastructure that we just don't have right now. So lots to consider there. Have we decided a return to work date? No, by the end of May, I'm thinking what we'll have is a work plan, and leaders will be able to start working through the plan and start to talk directly to their staff about what they're looking at in terms of return to work date. I think it's fair to say that we would look at the new academic year. And I know that there are at least a couple of deans that have talked to their staff about that. But it really depends on, you know, how big is the department? How many employees do they have to facilitate bringing back into the work environment? How many are going to stay long-term? There's going to be a little variability just because there's nuances to each area. But we'll have a better sense of generally what we're looking at by the end of May. Let's see, Carmen is asking, are there details surrounding what criteria will be considered when determining who remains remote? Yes, we have, what the work group is doing right now is we put together criteria that really looks at the job description, the job role, the customers and interactions that the individual role has with the rest of the organization, and helps leaders walk through what that means when that person is remote, and what things have to be put in place so that there's no disruption, or so that there's a best accommodation for that particular role. And so each role is going to be looked at differently in terms of that role against the criteria, but the criteria itself will be pretty similar. Great question, Jim, regarding vaccinations. Will vaccinations be required before coming back to work? And I think these are questions that everyone is getting. So we, at this point, there's another subgroup that's looking at this question. We have not seen other employers requiring vaccinations to return back to work. You know, these vaccines are still under emergency orders. It would be unusual, I think, to require vaccinations when they're under this special order. And I think that it's something that we'll look to local authorities as well as the CDC as they come out with more guidelines. We'll continue to consider it. Right now, we have not landed on requiring vaccinations. That does not mean it won't change in the future, depending on what our local and federal government, state and federal government is recommending. But at this point, we have not decided to require vaccinations. But there is a group that's looking at this in more detail. And so I am going to ask you, if you have additional questions about this, please get them to Patrina Owens. And Patrina will collect them, and we'll make sure we get back to you with any questions that you come up with related to return to campus and remote work. So with that, I am going to take us to our next agenda item, which I believe is our total rewards group. I think Michelle Hill is going to kick this off. Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I hope everybody's doing well. So did want to provide some updates from the total rewards team as it relates to healthcare premiums, the retirement contribution formula updates, and then Dan Salamone and Sonia have an update on the career path modernization. project. Thank you. So during the 2021 open enrollment last fall, the university announced a delay in health and dental premium increases that would normally go into effect January 1 for 6 months, so they would not become effective until July 1st. This delay was due to the financial implications of the COVID-19 pandemic to deliver affordable options for employee health care, and wanted to make sure that everybody was reminded of that the rates are increasing. If you don't mind going to the next slide, these are the rates that will be effective July 1. These rates are on the Total Rewards website now. They were shared also during open enrollment, so employees were aware of what the upcoming increase was going to be. There are reminders planned for mid-May to go in at Rochester and the URMC Weekly, as well as the June HR Intercom. And then we will be doing a final reminder at the end of June, right before the impacted paychecks hit folks, just as, again, a friendly reminder of those increases. Any questions on the healthcare premiums? Thank you. So then the retirement contribution formula. So as announced by the President's office in February when they sent out that spring financial update, university leadership has partially reinstated the university's direct contribution for those individuals, those employees who are eligible to participate in the university's retirement program. You may remember that due again to the financial uncertainty of the pandemic, the university did make the decision last year to modify the formula for the university direct contribution. And the formula at the time was 6.2% of eligible compensation up to $100,000. The partial reinstatement, effective April 1st, is that the contribution, we will again reinstate the two-tier, and it will be 6.2% up to a breakpoint of $61,300, and then 10.5% of eligible compensation up to a maximum compensation of $140,000. Eligible participants who are actively employed by the university as of March 31st will receive a one-time lump sum contribution as appropriate for any contributions owed, and that contribution will take effect May 3rd. The university contribution for the remainder of the plan year, which ends June 30th, will just continue as normal. There are a number of resources on the retirement program page of the Total Rewards website, including FAQ, scenario examples, and a retirement calculator. So if you haven't had an opportunity to take a look at that website, would strongly encourage you to do so. And then the university will return to the full standard two-tiered retirement formula for all eligible employees, beginning with the plan year that begins July 1 of this year. And the contribution will be 6.2% of eligible compensation up to the new breakpoint of $63,100, and then go to 10.5% of eligible compensation in excess of that breakpoint up to the IRS maximum, and the IRS maximum is increasing to $290,000. Did want to point out that as relates to the annual indexing of the breakpoint, the breakpoint is typically indexed using a table provided by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. However, the results from the calendar year 2019 to 2020 were skewed as a result of the pandemic. So the university it made the decision to use the average breakpoint increase over the previous 5 years, resulting in the 3% increase, which is that $63,100. If we hadn't chose to use that 5-year average, the skewed results were actually indicating an increase of over 7%, which would have made that breakpoint for individuals receiving 6.2% a higher dollar amount. So this was a decision the university made that was in favor of our employee base. And then the last thing as it relates to the retirement program, wanted to make everybody aware that under, excuse me, under the Secure Act, there is a new provision as it relates to adoption and birth distributions that the university will be adopting for the 403B retirement program that will allow individuals to receive distributions for potentially unexpected costs related to either birth or adoption. Qualified distributions are limited to $5,000 per birth or adoption of an individual from the participants' voluntary contributions. These distributions are exempt from the 10% early distribution tax penalty, as well as exempt from the 20% mandatory federal tax withholding. And the distributions may be taken within 1 year of the date of birth or the finalization of the adoption. Formal communication will be coming out from the Office of Total Rewards on these, but did want to take this opportunity because seeing how we were all getting together to share this with the group. Thank you.
Michelle, it looks like there's just one question in the chat about the slide with the premiums.
Okay.
And whether those are represented as monthly or otherwise.
So they are monthly. And I see that Jen Lindsay provided the website to where the rates are available, and the rates on the website are both, they can be shown either monthly or biweekly. So if folks want to see the biweekly amount, but yes, the rates on the slide, the earlier slide, are monthly.
All right.
Thanks,
all right.
Susan.
Thank you. So I guess we'll shift gears a bit and talk a bit about the Career Path Modernization Project. And so this is a project that has actually been underway for quite some time now, about a year at this point, and has really kind of, I think, made some good progress. And I think where we're at this stage of the game is we want to really kind of inform this group and educate the folks on this call and on this team as to what we intend to accomplish relative to the CPM project and why it's so significant and so important to the university. And so it's actually a great segue for something that I think Stephanie Von Bacco and Karen Scott plan to talk about in a little bit, the Career Pathways project. So that I think this is a great part A and then a good part B. So when we talk about our Career Path Modernization Project and why it's so significant, so important to everything that we are doing as an HR function, I think this slide in particular really kind of drives that point home for me. And that is ultimately that all the programs that we run, all the things that we do as an HR function really tie back to our job structure in many ways, right? So whether it's trying to determine the right pay rate for a particular candidate that we're trying to attract into the organization, or whether we are trying to determine how best to measure and monitor performance for a particular role or function, so much of that ties back to the foundational element of what exactly is our job structure. And I think over the last several decades, as we've kind of lived and grown within the context of our existing job structure, we've had to make some changes, some tweaks, some adjustments to accommodate the shifting landscape of our organization. And so as we kind of look to the future of how the U of R is growing, will continue to grow, et cetera, we really need a job structure that will act as a solid foundation and be built on a platform that can carry us into that next phase of our evolution as an institution, as an organization. So having that strong foundation enables us really to do the critical work that this team, and I mean the entire HR function, will have to do over, the next several years as an institution in the way of equity and inclusion initiatives, talent acquisition, total rewards in the form of both pay and benefit structures, workforce and succession planning, performance management, and then career paths and professional development. And I think that one of the things that's particularly exciting about this project is that it kind of strikes a chord, I think, with everyone in HR, and more than just this is an HR project, it's an HR program. I think it strikes a personal chord too, in that it really is how we will establish even our own roles within the organization, and how we will, as employees of the university, understand what the career opportunities and the career paths that lie in front of us are. So if we go to the next slide here, we'll show you a little bit about what that may look like or what that is intended to look like in our future state. So if you think about our current structure, we have these really broad-based, ultra generic job families, right? Things like clerical as a job family, technical, research technical, supervisory and support, professional administrative and supervisory, which really don't hone in on the work that we are all doing in our jobs day to day. So the new structure is intended to kind of move in this continuum of broad to specific, or in certain instances, depending on how you're looking at it, specific to broad, with the idea being that based on where you are today, based on the skill sets you've developed in your current role, you'll be able to look at the job structure that exists or that will exist and identify for yourself a path to the rest of your opportunity here at the U of R. And so when we look at future state, and an example, and keep in mind, this is just an example. This is only a sampling of what will exist in the new structure, but we start talking about job family groups on a much more specific level, right? So we start talking about them in the form of what they actually are: finance, human resources, IT, the libraries, et cetera. And then we kind of take that down a step further into subfamilies. Those are things like accounting, audit, accounts payable, which would all roll up into that finance job family group. In the case, again, striking a little closer to home, on the HR side of the house, there'll be categories like compensation, talent acquisition, training and development, and so on. And again, keep in mind, this is just a sampling of what will exist. We bring that down a step further, and we start to sort of hone in on the career streams. So within each of those job groups, there are job family subgroups, those subfamilies. Then we go a step further into the career streams. Those are things like, is this a support level job? Is it a professional level job? Or is it a management level job? And within each of those, so support, professional, management, what level is it? Because you can have varying levels within the same career stream that all roll up to that same function. So if you think about it in terms of, we'll stick with the accounting example because I think it's a pretty clean one. In today's world, there are junior accountants, staff accountants, and then senior accountants. There are also bookkeepers, 1, 2, et cetera. And so as we look to take the jobs that exist in our current state and map them into the appropriate job family groups and subfamilies, career streams, and job levels, the intent is that we're creating a more defined structure, a more clear sort of path for people who are looking to understand where their position fits in today's model, and also what may be available to them as they look to advance their career or even shift their career. So one of the advantages of kind of reimagining the job structure in this way is that it gives you the opportunity to understand, I'm in accounting now, but what I'm seeing is that the accounts payable function or the audit function in the organization has similarities enough to fit under the same job family group. So that gives me an opportunity to dive a little deeper into what are the specific requirements they're looking for in someone who works in accounts payable. What are those jobs? What are the levels that exist there? How does that map to what I'm doing today? And then subsequently, we would then look to layer in basically a brand new pay grade structure on top of this that is intended to position each role from a pay perspective closer to its respective external markets. So right now, if you look at our pay structure, our pay grades are, again, very broad-based. We have, in pay grade 51, just as an example, we have roles like our administrative assistant, our staff accountant, and a whole bunch of other jobs that don't necessarily all fit together and certainly all have independent external markets that should be driving how we're paying what we're paying for a particular role. It's very difficult to get at those markets in our structure today because of that heavy clustering in each particular pay grade. So as we move into this new model, pay grades will be the ranges will be much narrower because they'll be much more honed on the actual market of each individual job, which I think is another sort of really exciting step forward for us as an organization. So as we move to the next slide, this gives you a sense of what the timeline we're looking to accomplish this in is. And keep in mind, this has been a project that's been unfolding for almost the last year. A lot of the work that's happened up to this point has been aimed at trying to understand and assess what jobs exist within the U of R, working closely with Mercer, who's our lead consultant on this project, trying to ensure that as we're sort of envisioning this future state for the U of R, we're doing it in a way that's consistent with other higher ed, research, and medical center types of organizations, which is critical. We can build this all we want for what we want and need, but at the same time, we have to understand how what we build will compare externally to that marketplace, knowing that often we are looking at the external marketplace as our pool for a lot of positions, so bringing talent into the organization. So we have, over the last several months, since probably, I think, January, February now, we've been working to kind of shore up what was originally a 3 to 4 year timeline to accomplish this work. And so now we're looking at a window of time that shrinks us by about, well, our goal is to try and get this accomplished as close to December of next year as possible, understanding that we may have to tip a little bit into the first quarter of 23 as well, just to make it all happen. But we've also got this project happening at the same time that we know that we as an institution will hit a $15 an hour minimum wage. We've set that goal for ourselves by December of next year. So we're trying to balance the realities of getting to $15 an hour in a structure that's going to make sense, rather than just retrofitting to a heavy extent the one that we already have. And so as we kind of play this out over the course of the next year and a half, this is what that all looks like. We are working right now to develop a brand new compensation philosophy for the organization. And that's critical because ultimately a compensation philosophy is going to not just anchor the effort, not just anchor how things shape up for the Career Path Modernization Project as we look to establish those new structural elements, grades, pay, all that stuff, but it's also going to help us govern compensation on the other side of this project so that we can ensure that how we are adapting our model in the future ties back to something that's anchored in what we're trying to accomplish and what we know we need to accomplish as an institution relative to this work. So when we talk about the compensation philosophy, that's going to include everything from how we look at ourselves relative to the market for each job, where we see our market placement. It's going to put in place a new governance committee that's made up of more than just HR, so that we can ensure that we have the appropriate leadership components at the table when we're making decisions about compensation, rather than doing it, as we currently do, which is basically coming up with recommendations in-house and then vetting it across several different leadership organizational structures. And then we also have things like our kind of the principles in which we intend to administer compensation going forward. The next phase, which is actually one that we're entering into at the same time that we're looking to round out the compensation philosophy work, is actually that structure, leveling, and mapping phase. So in this phase, what we'll ultimately be looking to do is take all the jobs that exist in our current state, map them appropriately to that structure that we went through on the last slide as best we can, and then look to build up and down from there based on any gaps that we hear from the organization we are missing in our current structure. So a lot of that work will take place over the course of, frankly, the next year, because you can imagine that's one of the heaviest lifts in this project. While that's going on, we're going to continue to work with our partner in Mercer to do a market pricing assessment. So that's where they're going to take a look at all the jobs that we will have preliminarily mapped to that new structure and start identifying the market benchmarks for each of those jobs, so that we can develop an assessment for ourselves, an understanding of how we are paying as an organization for each job relative to its respective market. From there, we'll move into the pay structure development. That's where we assign new grades. And again, keeping in mind those new grades will be more specific based on the nature of the work that particular role is doing, combined with the level in which that role exists in the new structure and what the external marketplace is suggesting we compensate for those jobs. From there, we'll move into pay administration, which is kind of a reimagining or reevaluating of what we put out currently is our wage and salary guidelines, and then we'll move into implementation. Implementation is a phase that's going to take us a bit too, for a number of reasons. One, because you can imagine that reinventing the job structure means having to reinvent a lot of the system components that are currently tied to the job structure. So all the things that I think personally I take for granted in what HRMS is doing every day behind the scenes, all of that needs to be reimagined in the context of this new structure before we can fully get there. And that is also a phase in which we intend to have heavy interaction, heavy conversation between managers and staff, so that they can help staff, everyone, all of us, understand ultimately where we come out on the other end of this and why certain things will happen in the way that they will. Something that's not on these slides that I think is really important to note is that at each phase throughout this process, we have full intentions of getting a lot of input from very specific components of the organization, so as to make sure we're accounting for all the nuances in those components, and also the community at large. We're actually planning to host our first all-employee forums series for anyone that wants to participate at any level in June, at the end of June. So we've got a lot of work to accomplish before then to make sure that we're doing right by our workforce, to be able to provide them with information like what we're providing you with right now, help them understand what we are working on from a structural standpoint, and allow them an opportunity to provide feedback and input so that we can ensure that what we're building takes into consideration some of the things that each individual at every level has experienced or is experienced in the context of what they would like to see evolve as we move forward. So I will pause there. I know I took a bit more time than I was probably intended, but feel that it's important that we talk about this because it is such a large project and will affect so many people, particularly in HR. So questions, concerns, thoughts? I see there's a few things in the chat here. So I know this is a little late, but why are the healthcare benefits? So I'll check just to make sure there's no CPM ones first, and then we can come back to the healthcare one. And I think that's it. So unless there are other questions that pop up, I'll monitor it. But it looks like that healthcare one was also addressed.
All right, thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, Dan and Michelle. Great updates. We're making lots of progress. So very exciting, lots to say in a little bit of time. And so if you have additional questions, please feel free again to reach out to Patrina, and we'll make sure that we get your questions answered. And so next on the agenda is Stephanie Von Bacco is going to give an overview of some work that's going on in learning and development in partnership. Michelle Lewis is also doing working with Stephanie on this work as well. So Stephanie, go ahead and take it away.
Great, thank you. And that was such a great segue, Dan, into the work that we're doing to really support the CPM project. And, interestingly enough, the project itself started a little over a year ago as well. And it was intended to really address staff development needs within the organization, and has quickly aligned not only with the CPM project, but also with our equity and anti-racism action plan and a number of those initiatives. And I recognize that there's probably some folks that have heard this presentation, although I know several of you have not, but we've made quite a bit of headway in a very short period of time in really bringing this program to what will be fruition very soon. And so it is intended to create talented pipelines and pathways. And so it's referred to as the P&P project, or the Pipelines and Pathways project. And you'll be hearing quite a bit more about it as we've solidified not only our staff, but our infrastructure and a lot of the work that we've been doing to move this forward. But the intent is really creating pathways and pipelines to engage internal staff in understanding what opportunities are available to them through career pathways, but also thinking about how is it that we are identifying and creating those pipelines to bring and offer opportunities for individuals in our community to come into the organization. And so there's really the two components. It's the internal employees and really looking at our inside individuals and how we are helping them level up and creating those career pathways. And then from an external candidate perspective, how we're supporting really that outside in and creating those pathways for high need positions. And so really the critical components that underline the Pipelines and Pathways project are three pieces. It's the skill development, the career navigation, and the career progression. And that's the mindset, the skill set, and really the tool set for individuals to be well prepared for not only existing high need positions, but also what are the future positions that we have and will continue to identify, as our workforce evolves and the work that we're doing as an organization evolves. So thinking about the skill development piece, really the learning opportunities that are available and continuing to develop and identify what those are and thinking about creative and innovative modalities to be able to provide skill development. It's putting together an infrastructure to create individual career plans for individuals by identifying what are their strengths and their interests. And then the career progression component is supporting their awareness of what are those career opportunities within the organization. And again, aligning very closely with the work of the CPM project and also the equity and anti-racism action plan initiatives. Next slide. So where did we start? One of the things that we looked at, and I'll take a moment and just pause and thank a number of people that are participating in this afternoon's forum and town hall, is really because this is a project that everybody belongs to and participates in, and there's just a number of hands that have helped us move this forward to the point that it is today. But where we started from an organizational perspective is really defining what are those high need positions within the organization. And working very closely with Dan and a number of other folks, we actually took a look at the data. We came up with close to 65 positions. And what we looked at were those positions that, based on current vacancy, we looked at turnover, we looked at overall time to fill, and then also years in the role to determine what were really bubbling up as high need positions. And of course, we also got a lot of subjective input on that as well throughout the organization. So you can see in front of you what we've identified from a medical center perspective, sort of the grade 8. And those are the 8 targeted positions that we're focusing on that have truly bubbled up to the top as being truly high need positions within the organization based on the turnover, the total number of active employees, average time to fill. And then we're also looking at, what is the percent of underrepresented minorities within these positions. And so how is it that we then develop those career tracks and those career pathways and provide those opportunities? So underlying these positions is a number of different initiatives that we are undertaking that we'll talk a little bit about to really promote both career development internally, but also those pipelines. And then from a non-med center perspective, Michelle has been working very closely with Kathy to identify in facilities opportunities to identify positions of high need. And I don't know if Michelle or Kathy, you wanted to comment on that.
We're early in that process. It's so awesome, the work that you did to put into the infrastructure, but we just did get the approval to move into doing this in these non-clinical positions. And so we do have meetings to talk to Mike Chahowski. We have the data. So we're just looking at that and really like are early in the phase, in that stage still.
Yeah. Thanks, Michelle. And I think that, and again, we've identified what we're calling them the grade 8, but I will tell you behind that, there's probably 4 or 5 other positions that are also just as high need that we are working with really individual departments to look at how we can additionally supplement and start to really support their ongoing needs. Go to the next slide, please. So part of this, these collaborations and really this work that we've done internally to identify those positions is also occurring out in the community. And I think that's the richest part of this program. We've had an ongoing relationship with not only MCC, our local community college, but also a community organization called FLIPS, which is the Finger Lakes provider. Oh, Jamila, you're going to kill me. The Finger Lakes Provider Program. And so that FLIPS, in addition to MCC, have been working very closely with us to collaborate over the last probably 18 months to do basically the same thing, identify what are those in-demand occupations, specifically in the healthcare arena. And so we've worked very closely with Dr. Todd Oldham at MCC and the Economic and Workforce Development Center to pull together based on not only what are the needs within our region and our county, but also 13 surrounding counties that FLIPS actually supports. And so this has been distilled down to identify what are the highest demand occupations using a federal category for occupation classification. It has also broken those down into different categories. And what we are finding is a tremendous amount of alignment. So, the positions that we're seeing as high need are the similar ones that we're seeing across the region. And so what this does is it allows us the opportunity to have those, to have an analysis of the highest in demand occupations, but then also think about how we drill down to then supporting those. And supporting those in a way that we are looking at what are the educational opportunities available and are they available within our region? Are they things that we need to develop and really work in partnership? So as much as this career pipelines and pathways program is sort of an internal program, there's a number of external community based organizations that we are working very closely with. Next slide. So part of this and really the big focus is fostering those relationships to become an inclusive local hiring pipeline. And we've identified, what are some of those, what is the why, right? We have the alignment and really looking at opportunities for community members to come in and be able to have access and skill set and to easily transition into positions, as well as having opportunities internally to not only grow our staff, but retain our staff and their skill set and their knowledge within the organization. But we recognize that there's no clear roadmap for staff in a lot of areas. And certainly, there are career pathways and career ladders in some areas within the organization, but it's not something that is transparent. It's not something that's readily available for individuals. And it's really a self-service. I have to kind of figure out what is my career plan within this organization. And so we have an opportunity really to better that. And the other challenges we see is lack of time for education or no dedicated time while working and having family obligations. Another barrier that we've identified is that our current tuition policy, really only focuses on job-related education. And so how is it that we look at something that is more skill-based and skill-related, especially when we're looking at in-demand and high-demand positions within our organization? Many educational programs that support some of the in-demand and high-demand, high-need positions are not necessarily offered at the U of R. And so those community linkages and building those relationships for certificate programs, for associate degree programs, and really even targeted soft skills that benefit our employees and are necessary for the work that we have now and certainly in the future. And then thinking about, what are those social support needs for individuals to be able to be successful in going back and whether it's going to school or attaining additional skill sets. Some key elements of the program is really the development of those formal career pathways for high need positions. And so we're going to walk you through one of those that is that really our pilot concept. And then it's the career navigation component, right? What are the resources internally to really help our staff walk through, understand the program, understand what resources are available, and be that mentor, be that cheerleader, and support them. Looking at tuition and program revision and how it is that we can support staff to be able to take advantage of programs, especially if they're external and not necessarily job related, as currently defined in our policy. And that is, where we are really working on those partnerships with external schools to develop certificate programs. And now sort of in this virtual time, it's looking at what we have locally, but also what programs may be obsolete locally and not available, and how might we partner with those so that those are available locally or virtually for our staff. A couple of other key elements is really keeping it local and accessible and providing those supports that staff need to be able to be successful, including paid release time for work. So we've explored a number of different funding resources and those partnerships that we've been developing over the last several years. We are looking at different federal grants that are available through MCC, through our local county, as well as through New York State and HRSA grants. We are working very collaboratively with community colleges, both MCC and GCC, as well as other workforce intermediaries, to look at not only what are our opportunities to really collaborate and meet what is not only a need for our organization, but also a regional need. Next slide, please. Thank you. So, I talked a few minutes ago just briefly about that career pathway, and we're starting with one of our grade 8 positions, which is our outpatient access specialist. I know a number of folks listening to this have been a contributor to help build really this demonstration and looking at for a particular job family, what are the opportunities and how do we align? What are the career tracks? And then ultimately, what are the progressive opportunities, not only from a pay grade perspective, but also from a skill set perspective. And so Karen Scott is working very closely with the OAS team and leadership to really map this out. And again, aligning it with our career path modernization project. And one of the things that we found that was key is really looking at identifying those skills that are necessary for each role and the training available, and what are those gaps, and how do we fill those gaps, whether those are internal or, again, with those external partnerships. The other piece that we also found in really sort of creating this infrastructure, and the intent is that this is very transparent. So as we start to work with our grade 8 and our 8 identified areas, that we are creating really what is this role? What does this role do? What are the education and training requirements? What are some essential skills and knowledge to be successful in the role? Where they might work within the organization itself, whether that be the medical center, ambulatory care areas, on the university side, what's the work environment like? And then certainly the compensation for that. And then how, what are the educational opportunities available, and how we align that. So this piece, we've actually started to build out these really reference tools of what these positions are, and have those developed as part of our progress forward for those grade 8 positions. And ultimately, again, aligning very closely with the CPM project as we continue to build that out, so that we have a level of accessibility and transparency to help our staff really understand what their opportunities are for growth within the organization. Next slide, please. I won't spend a lot of time on this, but I did want to just include, that career navigation component and what that roadmap looks like. And so as we're working with the OAS group, thinking about, is there a cohort that we can walk through and identify, doing a career assessment, looking at what they're using an interest profiler through the U.S. Department of Labor. What do I like to do? What am I good at? Identifying those skills and strengths of individuals so that we can help them work with us to develop search strategies, as well as think about networking and other skill sets that they can build. Working collaboratively on exploring different job opportunities, and certainly HRMS navigation for open positions, potentially interviewing or job shadowing experiences. And then, what is the additional skills and opportunities that might be aligned with, a progression for someone in their career. And that can be anything from, a soft skill to a hard skill to resume writing, interviewing skills, communication skills, and so on. And then thinking about, making this a level of accountability and interactivity, developing, what's been discovered, what is it someone likes to do during shadowing and interviewing sessions, developing an action plan with our, career navigation staff, and then how is it we can help them move forward and be able to, move into different positions. Next slide. So we were very successful at actually being able to procure some funding internally for this project based on, looking at the positions of high need, identifying a number of different aspects, including, what an educational program might look like. As well as, if we are taking someone out of their role and having them have 8 hours of paid release time. And so there's a number of different aspects that have been layered on to this Pathways pilot. And the organization is certainly investing in the pilot itself to work on addressing those high need areas and in-demand positions. Next slide. So we've been really working very diligently to build an infrastructure over the last really quarter in identifying, what our needs were to be able to move this forward. And so I do have a number of members of our team that are new that we'll be introducing shortly. But that includes a program coordinator for the Pipelines and Pathways program, who really works as a liaison with our community partners and is working very closely with Karen Scott and myself, and certainly Michelle, to drive workforce development strategy in alignment with our organizational needs, as well as the equity and anti-racism plan. And we've also been able to hire a professional development specialist to focus on career coaching and navigation, and really that assessment, exploration, and action planning. We've identified a number of metrics so that we are able to demonstrate the value and impact of this program. And these are really just a few that have been identified, but really looking at not only turnover, promotion, the pipeline program itself, and then certainly diversity of staff in our growth positions. So I'll stop there and see if there are any questions. I see that Jamila, thank you. Finger Lakes Performing Provider System. I couldn't quite get that out of my mouth for some reason.
So I would actually just like to take a moment, and certainly if people have questions, please put them in the chat while I just make this little call out to our friends in Learning and Development. As you can tell from this presentation, and thank you, Kim, for recognizing the great work. That's what I was just about to say. This team has worked so hard to really put this in place, and you can see how complicated this work is in terms of coordination with our community partners, with our internal partners. There's a strong relationship that is being made stronger between Learning and Development and our central recruitment office, and the importance of making sure that ultimately this gets built out across the university, and the work with Michelle Lewis to make sure that all of our employees have opportunity and can see where they can go from their current position is really just so important. And as Stephanie said, it really aligns with the CPM project that creates this overall structure, but doesn't really get into the different pathways in a way that we really need to, I think, to help our employees move and gain skills and actually understand how to leverage the benefits that we have. The fact that we got budget approved to create a tuition program that aligns to this program is really significant. It's really just under $500,000 for the pilot, and it begins on July 1. And it's just, it speaks to the commitment of the leadership to really begin to build this out for our employees in a way that's meaningful. I always say that if you ask people, what do they know about the University of Rochester? The first thing they say is, oh my gosh, it's the biggest employer in Rochester. And I think that what we really want them to say is it's got the most opportunity for anyone who wants to consider, career growth. And if you think about all of the opportunity that's available and all the diversity in the positions and the work that we do, what an incredible place to grow your career. But that's really a mystery to our employees right now. And so if you combine the work that's going on with CPM and with career pathways and pipelines and the work that we're doing to build out a central recruitment function, you really start to see how this will take shape for our employees and the external community to understand what the opportunities are. So I'm just really proud of this HR team, all of the individuals who work in these departments and all of HR, because this takes a tremendous amount of work across the organization. Our friends in HRMS, Jim Dauberton just all of our groups, the work that's going on in benefits and Kathy Miner's area. There's just a tremendous amount going on in HR, and I'm just really, really very proud to be a part of this team. So thank you so much for the work that you've done. I see a question. Will this information be available on our website, and do we reach out to review our career path? So the website is being built. I'll let Stephanie talk about this. We're still building infrastructure, but go ahead, Stephanie.
Yeah, I would tell you from a med center perspective, there is a learning and development website that does have it does have a lot of this infrastructure outlined there, as well as really a career pathway for managers to use and individuals to use to start to do a little bit of self-service, recognizing that, you know, we want to have the resources and the tools available to everyone within the organization, med center and non-med center. We are focusing right now on building out those career sort of pathways on those 8 positions that are identified as really critical high need. And then we know and what we anticipate that, you know, this program is going to have an impact. And so the goal would be that those 8 sort of continue to transition, right? They're not always going to be the high need positions. So we'll continue to expand the program. But ultimately, yeah, the infrastructure is there for us to continue to build this out. But there's a lot of self-serve and more information on the intranet website under L&D. And we're talking with communications about how we make that available on the university site. And, you know, ultimate goal would be to have this be very transparent, so that if I'm interested in the University of Rochester, I want to come work here, I go to the website, you know, that there's information about career pathways that's readily available. So I'm interested and certainly aligned.
Great. Thank you so much. Again, Stephanie, to you and your team for all this great work. I think that we are going to go ahead and move on. We have about 22 minutes left in our agenda. And so if we move on to the next slide, I think we're going to actually ask our leaders to introduce their new staff. And Stephanie is going to go first and talk about her new staff in learning and development.
Yeah. And I'm super excited because we just, you know, as you said, Kathy, this is an HR effort. But
I straightforward enough. I think it's also a fluff.
I have to just recognize my L&D team and all of the work that they've put into it. And we've got a number of new members that are helping to support these efforts. So I'll quickly introduce Carly Goff. I think probably a number of folks have met her. She's been working with the university really in a consultant role for quite some time, but she has officially joined the learning and development team. And she is our equity, diversity, and inclusion organizational development specialist with a wonderful theater background, and is really working with us to provide out-of-the-box, innovative, very experiential experiences to help really change our culture and impact our culture. Jamila Smith is actually someone that I have worked with out in the community for a period of time, and was just so excited that she's joined our team. She is our Career Pathways Development Manager, and she started in February and has hit the ground running and brought with her not only just a wealth of experience, but a number of community-based connections that are helping to move our program forward. And then Barbara Wilcox actually has joined us as our Pipeline and Pathways Organizational Development Specialist, focusing on really the career navigation component. And again, comes from a community organization where she was doing very similar work for us. And we do have another EDI, Organizational Development Specialist, who we just extended an offer to yesterday. So we'll introduce him at our next town hall. Thank you.
Great.
So as a nice segue, I did talk to that gentleman, so we are on track for that person to start with you, Stephanie. So good news. So we have a number of people that have come on board or shifted around here in administrative services. So Krista Cordwell, who came aboard to take over the return to work coordinator position. This is the one that is housed in workers' comp, but really supports beyond workers' comp. So often works with the business partners in terms of coming back from leaves or different accommodations, and works closely with Marianne Rawl. And then Tracy McGuire, also joining the workers' comp team and helping to support all of the claims management and working with Deb Borden to keep us going in the right direction in terms of managing our claims and our costs. And then DeCovis Finley, he's been with us through Strong Staffing and has joined us more permanently here in the file room. So when you're requesting files, it's DeCovis that's taking good care of you. I think I have more on the next page, okay. Jessica McFadden is one of our HR liaisons and joined us in January. Janelle Thomas, another HR liaison, joined us in February, taking on a lot of work. We're really doing a lot of hiring here at the university, and the team is doing the best they can to keep up with the volumes, and we have approval for more. So we're gonna have some more names for you in the next meeting. And then Jane Hanrahan was here as a temporary person prior to COVID, and we were fortunate for her to come back and join us more permanently here at the front desk. And taking over Trisha Monagle's role, and I've left one person off, so I'm just going to mention, Trisha slid over into that role, HR assistant, to do the postings. So all the postings for faculty and staff go over to Trisha. So she's doing very well, keeping up with everything. I think that's everybody from my area. Yep.
Michelle.
I pushed the wrong button and was talking, but nobody could hear me. I apologize. I'm pleased to welcome Alice Matagni, who joined the Total Rewards team March 15th in the healthcare area. Alex actually joined us from Paychex, and he's filling a vacancy created when Lindsay Schlegel, left last October. So I know the healthcare team is very excited to be fully staffed now that we have so much going on, and definitely glad to have him on board.
Okay, I would like to introduce our new associate director at the Medical Center for Medical Center and Affiliate Compensation. That's Dawn D. Smith. Some of you may remember Dawn. She actually was at the university to start her career, and then she went to Highland Hospital as the director of compensation there, and we've brought her back to the medical center, and she's doing great work with the medical center and the university in collaboration with our university compensation team. It's delightful to have her back. And then Josh, would you like to introduce Jay Jen?
Absolutely. Jay Jen, are you on? Can you say something just so your picture comes to the front?
Hi, everybody. I am on.
Nice. That worked. Hi, Jay Jen. The Jay Jen joined us a couple months ago as our business partner for behavioral health and social work. Certainly hit the ground running with her expertise in relationship management, and it's a pleasure having her on board. She formed great relationships with our team and her assignments already in just a matter of 2 months. So welcome, Jay Jen. Pleased to have you.
All right, I think we have a couple more URMC slides. Let's see. Dominica Ranieri. Dominica is on the line. I see her in the group here. I am so pleased to have Dominica join us as our Director for Staff Equity and Inclusion at the Medical Center. She has started in March and has definitely hit the ground running. She is taking in a lot of meetings, meeting a lot of people, and already has made a tremendous impact on our equity and inclusion plan at the medical center. She recently really populated all of our metrics in an extremely impressive way. So I am delighted to have her here joining us and would like to welcome her to the team. And then Rebecca, would you like to do the welcome for Jennifer?
Yes, thank you. So I am very pleased to introduce Jennifer Center to the group. Jennifer, do you want to say hi real quick so we can see you?
Hi everyone, I'm here.
Jennifer is our new HR Employee Relations and Engagement Manager, which now makes, I believe I now have an official team because she is my, she rounds out the Employee Relations and Engagement team, which is very exciting. So she comes to us actually from the Office of Equity and Inclusion. So no stranger to the university, brings a ton of expertise in investigations, also a robust experience in HR. And we're really excited to have her. She's, I know we're saying this about everyone, and that just speaks to how great this team is, but she's hit the ground running as well in her second week. And we are going to be putting together a lot of great data around our employee relations issues, trainings, as well as she will be my partner in crime for the engagement survey and all of that follow-up. So pleased to have Jennifer here.
All right, and so we're going to introduce the recruiting team, and I'm going to introduce Jamie Lynn Bradley, who some of you may recognize already. Jamie Lynn, however, Zach Arnold is out for a little bit, and Jamie Lynn has stepped in as our interim director for recruitment at the medical center, and has also hit the ground running and has taken on really a lot of Zach's work in collaboration with Leslie, and the two of them are absolutely working through all of the work that we have going on in recruitment. And so Jamie Lynn is going to introduce our recruitment team.
Thanks, Kathy. So the recruitment team, I'm really excited. I haven't gotten to meet everybody yet, but tomorrow I will be joining their team meeting. So I'm excited that I'm able to introduce some of our new team members. First, we have Martin Dumont, who is joining us in January as an HR representative 2. We have Yantis Fulton, also coming in January as an HR rep 2, and Shayna Quinn, HR rep 2, joining in January. So lots of folks coming to us right at the beginning of the year, which is very exciting.
Thank you, Jamie Lynn. I think is this the, okay, so before we go to the service anniversaries, I am looking at Danielle, and I do not think we have introduced Danielle to this group before. And if we have, we're going to introduce her again because she is new to us, and she is working as the new director for HR communications. And she is absolutely doing a fabulous job of pulling together all of the communications that we need to organize as an organization, and making sure that HR, the work that we're doing in HR is connecting to our employees and all of our customers. And so if we introduced her before, that's okay. We're going to introduce her again. And thank you, Danielle, for all that you're doing. And if you haven't met her yet, you will. She's kind of touching everything in HR. And so it's only a matter of time before she gets to you. Did we miss anyone? Is there anyone that we missed in the introductions that's new? Okay, all right, very good. So just going to talk about our service anniversaries. Huge accomplishments here. Really exciting to see the names on this list of individuals who have been here 10 years or more. Chris Walsh. Chris, are you on the line? I don't know. I don't see Chris's name.
I'm here. Hi,
Chris. Congratulations, Chris.
Thank you so much.
5 years. That's fabulous. And Chris actually taught me that a yogurt a day keeps the doctor away. So I appreciate all of his good nutritional advice. He's actually onto something there. So thank you, Chris.
You're welcome. You could have 2 like me, but 1 is enough. One's enough.
Wonderful. Josh Lehman, 20 years. Josh, you made it. 20 years.
I did. Holy cow.
That's right. And I will tell you that Dawn Smith, actually a long time ago when we worked together at Highland, told me that she she hired Josh. So I don't know if that's true, but she told me that a long time ago and was pretty proud of it. So so Josh, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
But I recognized his potential.
Oh, that
the joke's on you, Don. Huh?
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Josh.
Thank you. It's been a great run.
Maureen Tarina, are you on the line? 15 years? Let's see. Maureen may not be with us today, but if you see Maureen, please congratulate her. 15 years is a great accomplishment. Naja Ahmad. Naja, are you on?
I am on. I was surprised to see it's been 15 years. Wow.
It's wonderful. We're so glad that you've been with us for 15 years. Thank you so much for all.
I'm very glad too. Thank you.
Marguerite Pioletti. Marguerite, are you on? All right. Well, if we don't see Marguerite on, when you see her, please congratulate her. 10 years is a wonderful accomplishment. And then finally, Millicent Hartzog. Millicent, are you on? All right. Well, we'll go ahead, and when we see her, we will absolutely congratulate her. So congratulations to all of this group. We're very honored and proud to be working with you, and these are amazing accomplishments. So thank you.
Kathy, can I just point out that 5 out of the 6 started in the benefits team?
Very nice, Michelle. Very nice. See, when you come into benefits, you stay.
That's right.
That's right. Thank you so much. All right, so we're going to talk about the HR Achievement Award. For those of you who are new, the HR Achievement Award is, it's our own HR award. And this award is really selected by a committee made up of HR staff. This year's impressive nominations made it incredibly difficult for this group to make a decision. And so really important to know that we have many, many valued, you're all valued in HR. We have many, many talented individuals who were also nominated for this award. And the team really looked at our HR values criteria. We looked at performance, the team looked at performance excellence, looking at work product or information consistently accurate and provided in a timely manner, understanding what needs to be done to do the job correctly, asking questions, taking personal responsibility, regularly going above and beyond without being asked, always pitching in, and demonstrating commitment and motivation. And certainly integrity, demonstrating consistent professional and ethical standards, being trustworthy, contributing to creating a work environment of being open and honest, and communicating in a way that colleagues and customers feel valued and respected, equally welcoming and considering ideas, thoughts, and suggestions. In terms of this particular winner, some of the comments that we received are that this individual has knowledge of the business and the confidence to translate that into action, always transparent and available to provide trustworthy, sound counsel, patient with talking through scenarios and solutions for staff and managers alike, and friendly, collegial, and collaborative. And so without further ado, I would like to announce that this year's winner is Dina Gugino. Dina, are you on the line?
Yes, I am here.
Dina, we are so proud to be working with you and to recognize you for this achievement award. It really absolutely reflects the work that you do. Dina is an HR business partner in the Medical Center. Her nominations were submitted by Jose Ortiz and Charmaine Panilla. Dina, it just really goes above and beyond on a regular basis. And I know that many of her colleagues feel her support, her smile, and always being willing to help anyone. My experience with Dina is anytime I've asked her, if she's available or can help in any way, her response to me is always sure with a smile and a ready hand to help. So we really appreciate you, Dina. And again, are very thankful for all of your contributions. You will get a $100 gift certificate to Barnes & Noble, and your name will be added to the award plaque that's displayed in Wallace Hall. So congratulations, and again, really thankful. Do you want to say anything, Dina?
No, I mean, thank you guys so much. It's absolutely incredible. And I think everybody is just way too kind and gives me way more credit than I deserve. But I appreciate it. And I consider myself super lucky to work with my team and all of our HR team. So just thank you very much. I'm very humbled.
Well done, Dina.
Thank you, Dina. Again, we're really proud to work with you too, and really appreciate all the work that you do and the support that you give to all of us in your daily work. And so there are a lot of congratulations in the chat. I don't see any additional questions. Incredibly thrilled to see all of you, work with all of you, and to move forward. I just want to make a comment about the CHRO search. I know that the committee has been working diligently to really look at the candidates, and I know that they're getting close. I don't have an exact timeline for when a decision may be made and an announcement will come, but I can tell you that I know that they have an excellent candidate pool, and they're going to make sure that we absolutely get the best candidate in for this role to continue to move our HR work and guide this team forward. So with that, I'd like to wish you a great rest of the day. It was great seeing all of you. Again, reach out with questions. Happy to connect. So take care, everybody.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Thank you.